Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials. I've done lots of videos over the past year on the subject of emergency long-term food storage and suggested different things that you might want to store. I've also mentioned several times of the need to rotate out regularly the food that you're storing, and sometimes it can be a bit of a challenge knowing what to do with it to incorporate it into your daily meals. So I've grabbed a couple of cans out of the cupboards along with some flour, and I'm going to make something to eat tonight from that to use up those tinned goods as they approach their use by date. Any idea what I might be making? Let's find out. So we're in the kitchen and we're going to make our corned beef and potato pie. Got my baking dish, a little bit of lard on there just to grease the tin. Just very simply use the wrapper of the lard to grease the tin. Take a little bit off and just whisk around the inside. Get a nice coating on this pie dish. We don't want the pastry sticking to that later. And do the same with the insert. Just give it a nice little coating. And then get all that lard off my fingers. The coated pie dish can now just sit in the fridge just to keep it cool. That's one thing that pastry doesn't like, it's to be hot because it will stick to your fingers. I'll just cover that remaining lard up and pop that back in the fridge as well. So we've got our ingredients all laid out here, ready. We've got our 85 grams of lard, 85 grams of butter. I've measured out already the 115 ml of water, and I've pre-measured out the 340 grams of plain flour as well. And all we're going to do is simply pop those into the blender, the food processor, and we're going to mix those together. So we'll just take that out, pop that back on. Start off with the flour, 340 grams plain flour, just pop it straight into the blender. Swiftly followed by our lard and the butter. You can at this stage, if you want, just add in that half teaspoon of salt. Pop the lid on there, and all we're going to do is just slowly start pulsing that off until we get a breadcrumb kind of consistency. Chance to make sure everything's mixed through. Looks like it's coming along quite nicely. I'll just take the chance now to quickly fold in the edges just to make sure we are getting everything mixed together, which it looks like we are. Don't know if you'll be able to see this or not on the camera. Hopefully you'll see that that's got quite a nice breadcrumb type consistency there. So all we're going to do now, take our 115 ml of water, swish that around, pop the lid back on, and then we're going to blend that until the dough starts to form in a ball. Start off, just pulse it, chance to mix through. And you can see that's starting to form up in a ball now on the side of the blender. Swishing around quite nicely. So essentially that's done. All I need to do now is to scrape that out onto a bench and form it into a nice little ball. So I've just got myself a little tray there to pop this onto. Take that out. There we go. Just tease that off. And you can see that's quite a nice little, just give it a flour on my hands, a nice little ball there. So all we need to do is literally chop that in half. You've got essentially two little balls to make, one for the lid and one for the base of the pie. So just form that into a little disc. So there's one. And there's the other one. So all we need now is a little bit of cling film. This is always the fiddly bit, trying to find the end of the cling film. There we go. The joys of being live, eh? Yeah, so we're just going to wrap that up in those little discs shapes. And we're going to pop that into the fridge just to cool down for half an hour or so while we go on with the filling for the pie. So 2 little discs of pastry, pop that in the fridge just to cool down a little bit, and we can get on with the filling. Just give me 2 minutes while I quickly clean this up and we'll come back for the filling. Okay, so we've had a quick wash up. Onto our ingredients for the filling. As I said before, it's very easy. It's a tin of corned beef, 340 grams in there, 2 of these tins of peeled potatoes. These come in just water. The actual weight is 560 grams as it sits now, but of course most of that is water, so when you drain these out there's 360 grams in each of these tins, so you're getting 720 grams of potatoes. I could have added a 3rd can, but it would have been a little bit too much potato in the mix. So simply all we're going to do is grab our pan, open the potatoes and pop them into the pan. Couldn't be simpler than this. Over the sink so I don't make a mess. I will actually drain these potatoes and then top up with some fresh water instead of using the water that comes in them. Just pop those in. And there's 1 can. We'll do the second one. At some point I was debating with the idea of using mashed potato. You'll know that in my stores I do keep mashed potato in packets, and I was just interested to see if it would work or not. So at some point I might just do that. I'll try doing mashed potato instead of these tinned ones, but it's a way of getting through your stored items. Don't know if you can quite see that or not, but that's the potatoes in there. I'll simply warm those through on the cooker. 7 or 8 minutes just to heat them through. It doesn't need to boil, it just needs to warm through. Second ingredient is this tinned corned beef. Simply just take this out of the can and I'll pop it into that dish there just to wait until the potatoes are done through. So far so good with this. I've managed to, well, I'm not speaking prematurely, but so far I've managed to clean the food processor without slicing my fingers off, because those blades are extremely sharp, and opened the can of corned beef as well without slicing my fingers off. I will just break this into some more manageable sized chunks to make it easier for blending with the potato later. We'll just pop that into that dish to sit and wait until the potato is ready. So again, I'll have a quick tidy up, get the potatoes heated through, get rid of the processor because I won't need that, and we'll come back in that in a minute once the potatoes have heated through. Okay, well, we've warmed the potatoes through. Time to get them drained and mashed. Just want something on there to stand the pan on because it's hot. try and get all the water out, because you don't want this to be too sloppy or runny a mixture when you start mashing. So there's our potatoes. Simply get the masher and start mashing. You don't need to add any milk or butter or anything like that to this mix. It does want to be fairly dry. If you can see that or not from there. That's how it is. So we've got the mashed potato. At this point you can throw in that little bit of pepper that you've been saving. And of course now it's time for the corned beef. And just steady away, there's no rush. Mix this in so that you get a good spread of the mashed potato and the corned beef. Scoop the edges there. Could probably have done with a larger pan, but not to worry, we'll get there in the end. We are going to want this to cool down before we start putting it into the actual pie itself to go into the oven. So what I'll do is, once this is finished mixing, I'll just stand this in the sink in some cold water and just reduce the temperature a little bit, because it's too hot to go into the pastry. As I said earlier, one thing pastry doesn't like when you're working with it is being too hot. So there we go. There's our corned beef and potato mix. I'll just pop that into the sink in some cold water. To let that cool while we set about making the pastry. Don't need a great deal of cold water there, just enough for it to sit in and cool down. So that's the mixture. Now all we need to do is the pastry. I will do one other thing quickly. We are going to need a bit of a glaze on the pastry once we've made it, so it's just simply take an egg, crack that into a little dish, and then just whisk that up, and that will then form a nice little egg wash to put on the pastry before it goes in the oven. about do it. Like anything that I'm doing in baking wise or cooking wise, doesn't need to be rocket science. I'll set that aside for now, and then we'll start thinking about what to do with the pastry. Okay, so this is the bit that I'm not overly confident with. Whenever I do rolling pastry, it has a habit of turning into something completely different, but we'll give it a little whirl. It should at least provide some entertainment for you whilst you watch me desperately trying to roll some pastry out in a half professional manner. So we're just dusting the surface of the kitchen top. We've got our discs of pastry out of the fridge. I did just try and cool my hands down a little bit in the sink as well before I did this. Also need to just dust off the rolling pin with a bit of flour as well. And here we go. Object of the exercise is to just roll this out, changing direction as you go to try and keep the circle or disc shape. As this gradually gets bigger and bigger, it'll become difficult to turn the pastry and you'll just have to turn the rolling pin instead, while we ease out our circular shape, or we hope it's going to be a circular shape. It is quite therapeutic, but I have to confess I am not the world's greatest pastry maker. In fact, when it comes to cooking, I can't really claim to be the world's greatest at any bit of cooking. But we're gradually getting there. The pastry is getting bigger. Not quite sure how much of this you can see on the camera. I made a bit of a schoolboy error in that I've been doing quite a bit of video making down on the land recently, and I left the tripod for the camera down on the land, so I've had to try and rig up something on the kitchen worktop to try and be able to film this rather than jump in the car on Christmas Day and trek down to the land just to pick up the tripod. Just pop that on there. We're almost there in terms of size. It wants a little bit more. Because it does need to overlap the sides of the baking tray. That's almost there. A little bit more. And I think we're not far off. I can't say that that's a perfect circle because it clearly isn't, but you get the picture. Just one little bit more, I think. That's not looking too bad. where you often have difficulty is that you get one end thinner than the other end. Hopefully that's not the case. I guess we'll find out shortly when I try and get it inside the tin. Okay, let's, moment of truth, try and wrap that around the rolling pin and then get it onto the tray. There we go. How amazed am I that that went in. Just push the edges down so that it fits inside the baking tray. Helps to just lift the edges and ease it in, and I don't know if you can see that, but there we go. So we'll pop that to one side, spread out our flour again, and we'll do the second one. But I'm sure you don't want to see me rolling pastry for the next 10 minutes, so I'll just quickly stop that while I do the lid, and then we'll come back when the lid is done. So we're almost done with the lid for the pastry. Just check and see if that fits. Hopefully it will. And it looks like it will. So that's good. So as before, I just need to roll up that pastry and just pop it to one side while we set about the filling. Hopefully this will have cooled sufficiently now. Getting myself covered in flour. So all we need to do now is to get the filling into the pie. Just spread it around a little bit. We don't have smelly vision, which is a shame because this is actually smelling very nice. That's the pan empty, so we'll just spread this around now, try and get equal spread of the mixture across all of the pie. And I think that's about done there. Yeah, that looks level and equal across the whole of the base. All we need now is a little bit of cold water. We just need that to damp around the edge, just to help the lid seal to the base of the pie. I should really use a brush to do this, but as I said, I'm not the world's greatest chef, and I actually don't have one of these cooking brushes that you see the chefs using when they're either sealing the edges of the pie or, as we'll see later, doing the glaze. So that's that. All we need now is to get our pastry lid onto the pie. Fingers crossed this is going to fit, and it is. So that's a bit of a bargain. And now we've just got to crimp the edges. There is no science to this, just find the edge of the tin and work your way around it, just crimping these sides together, and that should make a nice little seal all the way around. As I said before, I'm not the world's expert baker. I just make it up as I go along. So that's the pie done. All we need to do now, if I can find a little knife, this kitchen's becoming a bit of a disaster area, and just go around the edge of the pie tin just to cut off the excess pastry. It is worth hanging on to these pastry trimmings. You can freeze the pastry. Just use one of those pieces of cling film we had earlier. You can save those and use them in another recipe. Just one final check just to make sure everything is crimped around the edge. Seems okay to me. It'll just help to stop it all popping out when it's in the oven. I'll just do a little nick in the top just to let the steam out. And there's our pie, ready to go in to the oven. Final thing. You remember I whisked up the egg earlier. Same principle as we did with the water. Round the edges, except this time we're just going to lightly glaze over the top with the egg mix. It will give it a nice golden colour. When it's cooking. Again, there's no rocket science involved here. You should use a brush, but as I said, I don't actually have one. And to be fair, so long as you're light in touch when you're doing this, and you don't pop any holes into the pie, it should be fine. Don't overdo this in terms of getting it too wet. You can see I didn't use hardly any of that at all. The idea is just to lightly coat the top. And we're done. Pie is ready to go in the oven, and hopefully you'll see the finished result. Well, as you can see, I've had a little tidy up. I've just put a couple more little vent holes into the pie. The oven is on and preheating. It's actually reached temperature now. You need to have this at 190 degrees centigrade, 375 Fahrenheit, but because I use a fan oven, I've dropped mine down to 170. So all that remains is to pop it into the oven, which we'll do now. And then hopefully in 30 minutes time you'll be able to enjoy the sight of the pie coming out. Just pop that in and away we go. We'll see you later. We're about halfway through the cooking time now, so just keeping my eye on this to make sure that it doesn't burn. Absolutely fine looking at the moment, so we'll give it another 10 minutes, checking it again, and as soon as I think it's ready I'll pull it out. That's been in the oven for 25 minutes now. Just take a quick peek. And that's actually looking very nice. I'll just give that literally a couple of more minutes just to make sure it's nicely browned off, and then we'll take it out for a look. Well, that's 30 minutes exactly, so I'm going to turn this off now, and don't know if I'll be able to wrestle this pie or not while holding the camera at the same time. That might be tempting fate, but we'll see. And that's looking quite nice. It's not too brown. It's pretty much perfect actually. Now then, stand by for a disaster as I pop this out onto the counter. There we go. So the thinking behind these, what I hope will be a series of videos, is using your long-term food stores. So clearly I've used the tinned potatoes and the corned beef to make the pie. I do have flour in long-term store, yeast as well, so baking's not an issue. You'd have to experiment a little bit as to how you would cook this if you were totally off-grid, but you can buy wood stoves that have ovens, or you could make your own pizza oven. Maybe that's something for another video sometime. I'll be having my normal steamed veggies with this later for dinner, but if you did want to use your long-term stores, then as you know, I do store mashed potato, tins of mixed vegetables, and of course gravy, so you could use those if you wanted to rotate out stores from your long-term food storage. But there's the pie out the oven. I'll just leave that to cool down, and then I'll take a quick happy snap of that when I have my dinner later. And there's the finished article. Corned beef potato pie with some steamed veggies, a little bit of gravy. And the pie is looking rather nice. So I can't wait to get tucked into that. Bon appetit. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you found something in there that was of use to you. If you did like the video, please do click on the like button. Also, feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always, I welcome any comments, questions or suggestions you might have. What do you think of the pie? Is that a good way to use up the tinned goods? Or do you have some ideas of your own that you could cook something with the tinned goods that you're storing? Let me know in the comment section below. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.